course, let me turn this on.
Oh,
Let me-
oh, hey.
Hello, hello. Peter, good to see you and good to hear you.
You're larger than life.
Good to be a part of that meeting, we had at 11 o'clock. Thank you so kindly. And thank you all for allowing me to go through this meeting via Zoom. The next one will not be like this. Thank you so much. I want to call in Pam. Pam, you there?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
All right. I'd like for you to lead us in that conversation relative to rank voting and instant voting mechanism. Talk to us a little bit about that, if you would.
Yes, sir, absolutely. And you should have some information in your packet. And what this is all about is talking about some options for doing municipal elections. One of the only municipality in Richland County that majority versus minority. So I wanted to talk about that concept and then also talk about the ranked choice voting, which is something that has been proposed in legislation last year. Councilman Duval was approached by the South Carolina Small Business Chamber when he was here and the South Carolina Municipal Association to support a bill H.4022 that was proposed last year. From my understanding, this is also supported by Better Ballot of South Carolina as well. And so we just wanted to, while we weren't in an election cycle, to talk about the possibility of changing the way we do our elections. And these are two options that are available and that are out there. Currently,
Pam,
yes, sir.
I understand how his intent, of course, was to move from a 50+1 to a majority vote. Is that correct?
So currently, sir, we are under a majority vote. So, we have to have, you have to have more than 50% in order to win win the election, or you'll have to have a runoff. And
Yeah,
so,
50+1, right?
or you have to have a
Okay.
runoff. So, like I said, there are several other ways that you can set up voting that eliminates that possibility of a runoff. And one of them is to do it polarity instead of majority. And what that means is that, bless you. And what that means is that essentially the person who gets the most votes, even if it's one vote or two votes, they're the ones that win the election. And so that is one option that people are using out there, and there are a lot of municipalities in South Carolina that do that form of voting. And then the other option would be the ranked choice voting, or it's called instant runoff voting. And that was what was proposed in the legislature last year, was the instant runoff voting. And so,
Is that what Howard proposed last year, Pam?
yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's what Howard proposed last year, was for the city of Columbia to consider doing the ranked choice voting. And just so that there's a little video I'd like to show that kind of explains what it is.
Sure.
And so I think it'll give some context to this, if you don't mind us showing the little video. And I emailed it to you, Reverend McDowell, but I don't
Yes, ma'am.
think you'll be able to see it while we're watching it now, but I know you watched it earlier.
Yeah, please.
Politics is tearing us apart, and it's because elections aren't working for most of us. Here's why. In the US, each of us can vote for the candidate we like the most. But whenever more than two candidates are running to win one seat, it's possible for most voters to hate whoever wins. Because of the split vote, politicians can ignore the will of most voters and still win. Ranked choice voting gives you the freedom to select a backup choice to prevent that from happening. Let's say a group uses ranked choice voting to decide what to eat for dinner tonight. Each voter selects their favorite dish, but also has the option to choose backup dishes. If one food receives more than half the votes, it wins, just like in any other election. But let's get to dessert, where the competition is more fierce. What if no ice cream flavor has more than 50% of the vote? Under a normal race, vanilla would win, even though a majority of voters didn't pick it. With ranked choice voting, the flavor with the fewest votes is eliminated, and voters who chose that flavor as number one will have their votes count for their next choice. Everyone gets a say, no one wastes their vote, and the winner is the flavor that the largest number of people agreed upon. That's ranked choice voting. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. You get more voice and more choice, and that makes elections better for all of us.
Can I make a comment? I'm not sure that that video describes then what the people really wanted. So the answer is more people voted for vanilla, but chocolate ends up winning because it got more secondary or tertiary votes. So does that really represent the will of the people, or does that not represent the will of the people? I've had the meetings on this and I just can't, I can't in my own mind determine that somehow that now represents the will of the people. And the way we do it is vanilla wouldn't have won because vanilla's got to go into a runoff with chocolate.
Yeah,
So I've really, I gotta be honest with you, I have really tried to get on board with this because at the beginning, it sounded reasonable that that's the way it works. I cannot make myself get to a point where somehow it really defines the will of the people. So, anyway, I've struggled with the concept because I think the way we do it now is likely the best way to do it.
so I totally understand that. Bringing it to you for information.
Yeah.
because,
No,
you know,
yeah.
Because Councilman Duval was approached and that he wanted us to consider it. And the other option, again, is the polarity over the majority, where the person who wins, who
Does
has the
not need
most
50%,
votes,
does
it
not
doesn't
need-
need 50%. That person has the most votes, which would be vanilla in that situation, then you wouldn't have another.
Right, so
you wouldn't have a runoff.
right, it's almost like strawberry is somehow influencing the election.
With
When nobody
the-
wants
with the
strawberry.
ranked vote, with the
Yeah.
ranked choice voting.
So-
So these are just options
Right.
that other communities use. Currently, there's about 50, different jurisdictions around with like 13 million voters that use, ranked choice. So it is something that's out there in different communities across different states.
So what does Richland County do?
They do polarity, from what, Erica gave me.
So
The reason why.
But the only other issue with that is the money, the financial piece.
Right. From a runoff.
Yeah, the financial piece becomes a issue not only because the county does it differently, it becomes a financial issue for us in the city, right?
Yes, sir. That is one of the issues that arises when you have a runoff. And so we wanted, you ought to have some discussion about other ways to vote that would eliminate the possibility of having a runoff. And these were just
So-
these are two
Pam,
options.
what is the average cost of a runoff?
But right now, I don't know that I have
I
that
think Erica had
information.
said like
You're supposed to
No, our cost.
I'm sorry.
So Reverend McDowell, I don't know if you can hear me. I asked him to bring back up the plurality method because honestly, the plurality versus the majority, the way you all do it now, is something that Erica, Teresa, Knox, and I have always talked about. at the right time raising with you all just to make a decision one way or the other, because it always comes up because of the issue of the election runoffs that we have and the cost.
Yeah.
That's the reason why we always have, said, well, at some point, we need to think about this, because I do think the majority of other entities do plurality,
So
right?
we're out,
And
so,
so.
But that's different than ranked choice.
yeah,
Oh,
right.
yeah,
that's
the
definitely
only
different.
reason,
Okay.
I honestly don't even necessarily think y'all need to even talk about ranked choice, but it was referred to the committee during the time that.
Like I said, I've tried to get it, I just
Yeah.
can't get it.
Yeah,
we were
it was a
just-
referral.
We were closing the loop on the referral, that was in the mix, okay? So while it was being brought up as a formal referral, I was suggesting to Pam and Erica, hey, it's on the same topic, go ahead and put it on the table about the plurality, because there's never really a great time, because every other time we saw it, it's been like an election cycle, and people didn't wanna even talk about it, cause they didn't wanna confuse the current, election that might have been pending. So we don't have to talk about it now either, we were
No, I do
just
wanna,
saying
I wanna,
that,
cause,
and Erica's in class today, so she would have all your answers on costs and everything else that Pam nor Teresa nor I probably have had readily available.
but just in general, if 7 people ran for a seat
Mhm.
and somebody got one more vote than the second place person, they would win. Regardless, even if they were 22%.
That's my understanding,
Of,
Teresa's.
polarity, yeah, they would win.
So Oddity, would you have won?
Yeah? 36%. 36%. Don't get it twisted. Out of luck. Whether there's a runoff or not.
No runoffs there, so that is the point. We just wanted to make sure, like Ms. Wilson said, that we brought up the ranked choice voting because it was a pending item that got referred. But,
Just in general, I could probably support maybe down the road some hybrid plurality model. I don't want somebody being elected at 23%, sorry. So, but I also understand that, if you have enough people running, 51%'s a tough hill to climb.
Anytime you're more than 3.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's just, this is not, so I can promise you, I was very excited that there's only 2 of us running in my election versus 3 or 4 of us.
Or 7.
Or 7, yeah, so anyway, I could potentially support a hybrid model where you had to have a super minority plurality, how about that? Woo,
Which is what, like
41%, 40% or something,
oh, like
something.
there's like a threshold.
Yeah, like a
There's a
threshold,
threshold.
I could support.
So what happens if there's not? You have to do another election?
You'd have to have a runoff. I mean, I just think though that, I mean, in my mind,
So
somebody,
you're basically lowering the threshold of the general.
yeah, I guess so.
So you don't need 50 plus 1, you're saying you can get by with 40 something.
Yeah, I can support a hybrid model that, but I mean, at some point, going back to good old vanilla and chocolate over here, so if 45% of the people supported vanilla, that, in my mind, that's the will of the people. And then if just strawberry jumps on board with chocolate to end up making it 55%, well, I think you just undermine the will of the people. So anyway, I think this is about the will of the people, more so than anything.
Well, I'm more butter pecan than I am chocolate. I think I agree a little bit, Peter, with what you're saying in terms of a hybrid approach to this later on down the road. But we've been doing it this way how long?
Long time.
Long time. I don't know how long.
Long time.
Long time.
Yep.
And that's the majority. It would seem to me that we need to at least discover what that hybrid approach could look like, would look like, and then go from there. But right now, I think it gives persons an opportunity to say and do what they want to do in terms of an election.
and again, the discussion is that if we did change to polarity and don't have the runoffs, you know, there's a cost involved in a runoff. People don't show up for runoffs.
The committed,
Sometimes.
that's the committed,
Committed
the
to,
committed people show up in the
but you
runoff.
don't have as many
Well,
that
that's exactly
show
right.
up.
You're 100% right. But I also think that's part of the will of the people, you know. So I think, you know, we talk about this a lot, marketing and messaging. The messaging is that I think, well, we support a open election that where the winner is the best option determined by the will of the people.
We wanted to definitely, like Ms. Wilson said, talk about the ranked choice, because that was pending out there. And then give you have a discussion about the plurality versus the majority at a time where you weren't having an election. And so,
Yeah.
you know, it was a clean time to kind of bring it up and talk about it. So are your thoughts to bring back some type of?
Just because Erica
Or-
wasn't here, I mean, I think it's worthwhile just to talk about it again, but.
I would love to just see examples of if there has been a in-between, if they've lowered the threshold in other states or counties.
Okay.
Cause I hear the concern about costs, that could address some of the like not needing a runoff if you don't have to get to 50%, but I also agree like 20%, that just doesn't feel right for a big city like Columbia.
I know, it
Yeah.
doesn't.
Well, the interesting thing is that we're talking today. There is a need for us to talk some more about plurality and of course majority, whichever way we wanna go. But I think this is not the only conversation we're gonna have as we move into 2025.
Agreed.
Yes, sir. So we will try to find some other examples where the thresholds are different or lowered. And then, we'll make sure Erica's here. That's right. The next time we talk about this, and we'll bring it back. She's not here, but we'll make sure she's here the next time we talk about this. Because she is definitely has a wealth of knowledge on elections and what happens, you know, in the state of South Carolina as it relates to elections and voting.
Absolutely.
So we'll do that.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, which gives us, it gives us a greater need to have some more conversations relative to that, to item number one. Let's look at item number two, our food truck policy. A year ago, I wanna say a year ago, we talked about the food trucks and we talked about Friday food trucks. Dr. Bustles, talk to us a little bit about.
Yes, absolutely. So, a little over a year ago, almost 2 years ago, we talked about activating some of our areas that don't necessarily have brick and mortars, and wanting to get more of people kind of exploring our entertainment districts. And we launched Food Truck Friday. This was in response to a question that I received from a constituent about why we don't have food trucks during the legislative session near the State House. And so obviously would love to hear from our staff how that is going. And I've been to several Food Truck Fridays, but we tried a lot of different things. And I think right now we're doing an 11 to 3 time span on Fridays at Bull Street. We looked at other locations as well, but because Bull Street is a work in progress currently and there aren't as many options in that area, that was the place we saw the most traffic. So would love to hear from our OBO and Economic Development Department about how Food Truck Fridays is going, and then we can move into talking a little bit about some of the policy conversations that we've had. I will note that we did some very preliminary research about different food truck policies across South Carolina. Like Columbia, Greenville also does not allow food trucks in public right-of-ways. However, Charleston does. So there's like some different ways to do it. Currently in our ordinance, we don't allow it in public spaces. But of course, private properties like, Curiosity Coffee does it. A lot of breweries will bring in a food truck. That has been kind of the way in which they've been operating.
So Reverend McDowell, Greg Williams is here, and we've got Harold Reeves, we've got Shantae, what's your last name? Cooper, and Hope, and from OBO, and Hope Hastings from Krista's group. And so we've got lots of people here to answer any questions and to add to our conversation today.
Let me ask this before Greg comes on board. Dr. Bustles, let me ask you this. We're talking about Food Truck Friday, but we're talking about a holistic approach now as we approach food trucks.
Yes, so Councilman Brown had raised potentially also revisiting based on, kind of what he had been hearing, and I don't want to speak for you, but just wanted to learn a little bit more about what our food truck ordinance is. So we're going to just do a brief overview of Food Truck Fridays, which was really, if you recall, Reverend McDowell, we decided at that time we didn't want to make any policy changes. We just wanted to launch a food truck initiative. Yeah, so today would be a very preliminary conversation, getting Councilman Brown up to speed, and then also just hearing from TK, what are some options if we do decide at our next meeting we want to review a potential ordinance.
And just for the record, while we're sitting here, I wrote down like 3 brief questions for me. Like, what is the current success of Food Truck Friday? Second one would be, what is the need for change? Third one would be, what would be the goal for a policy change? Those are off the top of my head. It's hard to, part of this is, what are we trying to achieve? In my mind, and where are we, as far as currently, and so that's kind of where I'm
And
at.
I think one of the specific things that happened that brought Greg and Harold into the mix too was when Mr. Brown received, I guess, some concern from a church,
Yep.
Trinity, because they were wanting to do food trucks in the right of way, but it was for a
Okay.
particular
Good to know.
event
Correct.
they were having, and they tend to wanna do that quarterly. And so there was a workaround for that, and they were able to do their event, but I think it spurred the conversation, Dr. Bustles, that you all are already having, so how could you fold that too into the ongoing policy for things like that?
Perfect.
All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for letting me speak to you guys. I'll kind of outline how the Food Truck Friday has gone. I would like to, I guess, kind of highlight our OBO staff in attendance, Ms. Cooper, for doing an outstanding job with scheduling, wrangling these food trucks.
Thank you.
I know firsthand what an effort is required to work with them. Yes,
Remember
yes.
when they used to email you directly and we didn't have a food truck's email?
Exactly. All right, so OBO has started doing 4 trucks on each Friday, and that's usually 3 different varied cuisines and 1 dessert truck. This has worked out really well because we all know things like happen in life, so you can have a cancellation every now and then. And this allows a variety of trucks to still be out there to service the public. OBO staff is doing outreach to various city departments and state agencies to encourage participation because, what's the point if they're not coming out there to enjoy the food trucks? They have also appeared on Soda City Live to promote this event. They receive a great deal of requests from food truck vendors to participate because we believe it is lucrative for them to go out there. Ms. Cooper has worked with public relations to increase interest through our various social media platforms. They're also using social media to review and invite new vendors to participate from various food truck pages on Facebook, Instagram, from the surrounding areas. So the trucks currently are scheduled out until the end of April, and this is only due to the business license requirement that each truck must have. They must have a City of Columbia business license. They must have a DHEC viable permit that they can serve safe food. Let's see, the trucks typically see up to 40 customers, and OBO staff is sending out periodic surveys to participants to get feedback to see what works, what doesn't work. And they have had trucks also expressed interest in offering the event multiple days. So instead of Food Truck Friday, maybe you could do Taco Tuesday, you know, whatever you wanted to roll out there and do. OBO has also shared information with each of the vendors on how they can assist with growing each individual small business. And working with these trucks has also resulted in participation in other city events, the Breast Cancer Awareness Breakfast. And that is currently the state of the food truck program.
Good. So Greg, I wanna say, happy birthday to Greg. Greg's birthday today.
Happy birthday!
Greg, today's your birthday.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, it is.
How old are you?
I'm 45 years old. I will say it. I'm ready to own it.
The good old days.
I'm just kidding. You're blessed. You're blessed. Let me ask you this, Greg. The food trucks, of course, offer a kind of opportunity within our city to enlarge and project a kind of image where folk are being fed. OBO has the responsibility. I understand that there are three food trucks now that are existing. There are 3 food trucks that are coexisting within defined communities. Tell me about that.
Yes, sir. They typically operate out of the REI parking lot in the Bull Street district, and they will set up at various places throughout that parking lot. And they try and vary the cuisine, so it's not necessarily 3 barbecue trucks or 3 taco trucks. It'll be a smash burger, it'll be a taco truck, and then it'll be a barbecue truck. So you have a variety of choices to go to and enjoy.
Okay. Now, what time does all that start?
That is from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Friday.
Okay, thanks.
And that was one of the goals, Mr. Chair, sorry. May I speak? One of the goals that we had talked about initially was to see this be expanded into an evening time. I think you'd bring a very different crowd. And I'd love if the staff could go back and see if there's any feasibility to that. Ideally, we could link up to something that already exists. I think the Bull Street area, especially during games, there's an opportunity there in the summertime to take advantage of that in the evenings. But I love the connection that we're making to these oftentimes first-time business owners, minority business owners, and we're highlighting ethnic cuisine. Like, there's just a lot of great things we could do there. So if it's okay, I'd love to recommend that we explore, just for the Food Truck Fridays, what would that look like if we did something in the evenings?
And I definitely want to give, Shantae, I want to give you an opportunity to speak as well, since you're coordinating this a lot now. So is there anything that Greg left off, anything else you wanted to share about your thoughts on it? And if you don't mind coming to that mic, because that way we'll be able to hear you a little bit better. Okay.
Okay.
Studies, but Greg is the one that actually spoke about what my thoughts.
Okay, so you're good. He covered them all. I just, thank you.
What is what's the vibe from the brick and mortar businesses about Food Truck Friday?
It's been positive.
Well, mostly because we moved away from.
From them.
From them.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's the conversation, Mr. Brown, is that they're very supportive as long as they're not right next door to them. So, which is understandable. And I think that they are comfortable with the setup that we have now with the Fridays at Bull Street. And so that's been some of the conversation, that some of the Main Street or 5 Points, they just wanna be careful that they're not too close to them because of some of the fees and some of the things they incur from being a brick and mortar business that the food trucks don't deal
Because most of the food trucks are kind of,
They don't have a brick and mortar.
yeah, but they're selling themselves to like organizations. Like if you're a school or a church or whatever. I mean,
Yeah,
aren't
they do a lot of events.
Yes,
They'll
I
be
mean,
at Soda
event
City,
oriented. So,
breweries, yeah.
okay. So that's where they're really, I mean, in my mind, Food Truck Friday is more like marketing for them, don't you think?
It is.
Okay. So it's just a way for them, to people to connect them to
other
others, yeah,
other
right, right.
opportunities.
So, okay.
Yeah.
So when you talk about after, like evening, what do you have in mind?
4 to 6, like something before the games. If we stick to Bull Street, I think that would make sense. Again, I'd love to explore the State House option. I know there's a lot of things we'd have to worry about there in terms of security, but would we be able to provide, 3 or 4 food trucks on our parking spots that they could come during the legislature? Things like that. That doesn't necessarily have to be a program. I think that would be more so like, can we work with our existing zoning laws to do that? But yeah, anything that we could do to be able to tell the story of like, we are elevating these businesses and providing them the marketing and the platform, but we are, again, aligning with all the great things that are happening in the city, like our Fireflies, like the new things that are coming to Bull Street. I think that would be a nice sweet spot.
So going back to my questions, would we consider Food Truck Friday a current success?
That's yes.
Okay, check. Do we feel like there's need for change in the program?
So I think the discussion goes to when like a Trinity wants to do a
That's what I was-
social event, or when someone wants to put a food truck. Because we've had an internal working group with economic development, OBO, Krista's group, parking. They've been talking about, other things around the whole food truck policy, things that have occurred from other vendors wanting to, put a food truck in the right of way or do some other things. And so they've talked through some potential things to figure out or to work around.
But in terms of
that
Food Truck
didn't
Friday,
require
no
or-
changes.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But
So
did-
don't they, what's the place over there on Divine Street?
Craft and
Craft
Draft.
and Draft. Don't they park a truck right in front of the?
It's unauthorized.
Okay. Well, that's what I was,
Carol, I don't announce the special events and all that we've done to, kind of elevate special events and things of that nature. Harold's now in place coordinating that effort, so he's gotten involved. And I was really proud how Harold and Greg were able to do the workaround for the church, but I don't know if there's any other things y'all want to bring to the attention of the committee to think about while we wanna, I like the idea of expanding food trucks
Yeah.
to these
So I was-
opportunities.
yeah, I think I mean, that's what I would say, that's the reason I brought that up, because, I'm pro food truck. I'm not pro no policy, not enough with policy, you gotta have compliance. So the problem is, you always gotta be careful what you wish for.
But wouldn't you say most are complying? I mean, that's an unauthorized exam, or are we seeing a lot of unauthorized food trucks?
Come to the table,
Yeah.
come to the table.
Either one.
First of all, good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to share. As Dr. Bussell stated, we currently do not have an ordinance that supports food trucks in the right-of-way. The food trucks that we have currently are either in parking lots or either when it comes to special events, so it's an enclosed area. And, and like the church, so if we start looking at right-of-way options, I think that there's gonna have to be a strong look at public safety issues as well as, different other departments involved, because not only do you need to look at pedestrian and consumer safety, you need to look at vehicular safety as well, making sure that that vehicle is not in the roadway, making sure that, the cooking utensils that they use, whether it be gas or whatever, propane is properly vented and everything. So I think that there is going to be some issues that need to be addressed from a public safety issue. And Dr. Bustles, when you're relating to the State House, we would need to work with the Capitol Police and everything when it comes to that. So right now, there is a lot of issues that we would need to look at and address when we move into a right-of-way type environment. Like you were saying, I think the 5 Points parking lot or private parking lots or whatever are more conducive because you don't have people right up close to the road, where small children or someone break away from a parent when they're in line, or someone who was driving erratic or not paying attention, hit the vehicle on the side of the road. So there are issues that need to be addressed if we want to move that way.
I think, for something like the State House as an example, there are plenty of state agency parking lots there too. So there are some things we could look at. It doesn't necessarily have to be,
In the right of way.
yeah.
And I do think that Capitol Police and, other agencies would be willing to come to the table and share and try to make those available to to those at the State House.
Okay, so there's,
There's definitely workarounds.
yeah, right. So we would consider some type of reasonable ongoing expansion of the food truck
Fridays, yeah.
Fridays. Okay, it's reasonable.
In terms of the workaround that y'all were able to do with the church, is that something that would be easier? Should we do like a text amendment to zoning, or is it something you can continue to use if we have more things like that come up?
I think for that one, we were fortunate that it was kind of a predisposed event. So that allowed us to kind of have that workaround that Harold mentioned.
Okay,
But yeah, there would be some work that we would have to go through to make that possible.
but it's possible. Okay.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
But Greg, I do want to commend you and Harold for, doing what you've done for food truck policy, food truck Friday, and OBO for providing that kind of assistance. And I think what I'm hearing is an approach with some issues that we need to talk through and work through, as it relates to food truck. Dr. Bustles, you mentioned the night, I think from 4 to 6. I think we have to consider all of those kinds of things because the time issue come in and get darker quicker. But those are the kinds of issues we can talk through and at least work through it at this point. So we thank you for that. We really thank you for this, at least starting this process and getting all of us involved in this process. Because folk are delighted when they're all food trucks and they are anxious to get some of its delicacies. So let's go forward. Now, members,
Thank you.
I think that there is, in my thinking, I think there's a notion, and I thank you, Dr. Bustles, for bringing this to our attention in terms of Food Truck Friday and the expansion of that as it relates holistically to this community of ours. Whether it's Friday or whether it's Wednesday or Thursday, I think there needs to be some continued conversation relative to that whole issue. And I would only suggest that we continue to talk through it.
Sounds good.
Yep.
Okay?
Thank you, sir.
So can we consensually agree that we're gonna continue to talk about food trucks
Yes.
I wish I had one parked in front of my house.
Yes, would love to hear what you all recommend for potentially expanding in the evening.
Say again, Dr. Buck.
I'm agreeing with you.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Benjamin.
Yes, sir, you're welcome.
All right, let's go into item number 3. Honorary naming of streets and signs and that sort of thing. Talk to us a little bit about that, Ms. Pam.
Yes, sir. So I just wanted to, this will be really quick. I have provided the updated copy of the application that Mr. Brown and Dr. Bustles made some edits to. And so I'd like to formally move this application out of committee to be used for anyone who is looking to do an honorary street naming facility, a room, or site naming.
I think, Peter, you've had an opportunity to look at that, and Dr. Bustles, you've had an opportunity to look at that.
I mean, I think it looks great. I just want to make sure it's actually used. I mean, we voted on 2 namings before this was even out of committee, so that was a very awkward thing for me. Although I was in support of those changes, of those namings. There's no point in creating a process if it's not used. So what are we going to do to enforce?
I think that's true, and I think it's, in my mind, the goal of this was to maybe raise the bar an inch, not 10 feet. So all we're trying to do is have a formalized process that you have to follow in order to get what you want, whether or not, like Dr. Bustles just said, just because everybody agrees with it, the process is more important than the outcome.
Yeah.
So
Agreed.
Yes, sir.
100%,
Yes, sir.
every time.
Prior to me getting sick, we had a conversation early on about this issue, about the renaming process and honoring those persons with a topper. We talked about that. This brings us full circle now into bringing this out of committee into council, for council to approve it. I think we're well on our way of developing a process where all bases are covered. What do you think?
I agree. I think it's a good improvement, and we just gotta make sure that you can't break the rules.
Yes, sir. Now, we've done that before, so.
I know.
Oh, yeah, it just happened.
I think we're all well aware.
And I must say, and I say this very honestly and gently, the rules were broken, but they were broken in good faith.
You sound like my 16-year-old.
This gives us a good analytical way to start that process. So can we consensually bring this out of committee into council?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
I think the
Okay.
effort for the last 2 had to do with the timeliness of the month of February being Black History
yeah.
Month. And that was the request to get them on there, but the rules were followed as far
Right,
as the structure.
Shanique did,
She filled this
she
out?
followed this.
Well, there you go,
for the-
Shanique.
Yeah.
She was here, now she's gone.
Yeah.
She did a good job of making sure they had all the elements present when she used you all's form to do that. So
Yeah.
we were in compliance with the application for those 2 as well.
Well, that's good to know.
Sounds good.
Makes me feel a little bit.
Yeah, that makes me feel good that we followed the process.
And again, to Dr. Bustle's point, it passed unanimously, so.
Yeah, I mean, it was a
wasn't-
great,
Right, so we just need to put this
occasion.
line in the sand
Yes.
that going forward, it is what it is.
Yes, sir.
So,
Sounds good. So consensually, we will bring this out of committee into council. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Is there anything else?
That's it.
that's it.
Okay, good. Look, I just thought of something. At our next meeting, let's take up the whole issue of proclamations and keys to the city.
I wanted some keys.
Yeah, that would be great,
100%
Reverend
agree.
McDowell.
I'd love to give everyone a key to the city, but there needs to be a process. I think.
Agreed.
And if we're gonna do this with street naming, I think we ought to do it with proclamations and keys to the city.
100% agree.
So let's put that on the agenda for next month,
Yes, sir.
so we can do that. Pam, is there anything else?
Tina texted us, like, I followed the
No,
process.
sir.
She's
There
listening.
isn't. We will definitely, bring that back to the next meeting and have you all a policy to look at.
Please.
Yes, sir.
All right. All mind, as they used to say in the old church, all minds clear.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, it's moved and seconded that we adjourn. Thank you so much.
Good to hear your voice, Ed.
Thank you, Reverend McDowell.
Thank you, Ms. Benjamin. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You noticed that,